Hello and Assalamu alaikum. Today we have here Cambridge IGCSE Chemistry, Paper 2, Multiple Choice Extended Version, Variant 2 February March 2024. Total time for which is 45 minutes, total marks 40. So, question 1, solid X is heated for 600 seconds. The graph shows the heating curve that is obtained. What is the melting point of X? So, it was a solid over here, they have told us, and as we heated it, at this point, a change of state occurred. Because whenever a plateau is achieved in the graph, it indicates the state of change because energy is absorbed to break the intermolecular forces of the particles. So this is a state change, this is a state change. So after solid, it should go into liquid, which means that it is melting over here at this point, which is, if you look at it closely, this should be 150, 150, 160, and 170. So 170 is the melting point. So the correct answer is B, as the question was, what is the melting point of X? Next, which statement about diffusion are correct? Aqueous ions cannot diffuse in water. Why not? We have ions in a solution. Why can't they diffuse? They can diffuse. Diffusion is caused by the random movement of particles. Yes, due to the random movement of particles, they move. Particles spread out in all directions in diffusion. Yes, this is also true. There is no specific direction in diffusion as it is a random movement. The direction, you can say it is from a higher concentration to lower concentration, but that is something else. That is not a direction. Diffusion can only take place in solids and liquids. No, it can very easily take place in gases also. So 2 and 3 are correct. So option C. Which statement about an atom of fluorine is correct? It contains a total of 28 protons, neutrons, and electrons. So the number of protons are 9 as we can see. So the number of protons are equal to number of electrons, which will be 9 as well. And the number of neutrons equals to 19 minus 9, the mass number minus the proton number, which is 10. So 10 neutrons plus 9 protons plus 9 electrons, which will be 28. So option A is correct. We don't need to look at these because we're very sure of this. Two of the isotopes of calcium are represented as 4020 and 4420. Which statement explains why these isotopes of calcium have identical chemical properties? Both isotopes have the same number of neutrons? No. Both isotopes have different number of neutrons as they have different masses. Both isotopes have an electronic configuration of 2882. This is correct because their chemical properties are affected by the number of outer shell electrons. And in isotopes, the number of electrons remain the same. So, which is why they have similar chemical properties. Next, which statement describes a property of potassium iodide? It is insoluble in water? No. Potassium iodide is an ionic compound. So ionic compounds are because it has a metal and a non-metal, and these are soluble in water. It is a volatile substance, means it can be turned into gas easily. No, they have a high boiling point. It has a low melting point. No, they have a higher melting point. It conducts electricity when molten. Yes, because they have free mobile ions in molten state. Question 6, methanol has a boiling point of minus 19. At minus 20, the liquid methanol is a non-conductor of electricity, so it is not an ionic compound. Not an ionic compound. In a sample of methanol, each atom of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen has noble gas electronic configuration. Each atom has achieved this electronic configuration in one of three ways, either by gaining electrons, losing electrons, or sharing electrons. So these two are related to transfer of electrons, which occurs in an ionic compound only. So these two are incorrect. Only sharing of electrons takes place between the atoms. So the structure should be CH2 and O. So we are still left with one lone pair of carbon atom of carbon electrons. So there should be a double bond to have full noble gas electronic configuration for carbon and oxygen as well, because both of them need to make a double bond. So this is the structure. Next, the carbon atom and the oxygen atom share 4 electrons. This is true because two over here and two over here. One pair and second pair. So two pair, which is two pairs, which is equal to 4 electrons. Next, option C and D are incorrect because we don't have any iron, and this is incorrect because we don't have 2 electrons, we have two pairs of electrons and total of 4 electrons. 7. The structures of diamond and graphite are shown. Which statement about diamond and graphite are correct? Diamond and graphite contain strong covalent bonds between carbon atoms. Yes. They don't have, diamond does not have delocalized electrons, diamond does not have a layered structure, and both of them don't have a low melting point. Which row contains a description of metallic bonding and a property that is explained by reference to metallic bonding? So they have positive ions and a sea of delocalized electrons. So no negative ions, and property explained by reference to metallic bonding. This is a physical, this structure will be affecting a physical property. This is a chemical property. They don't affect reactions in this way. So option D is correct because it can be molded into different shapes due to the sea of electrons and the space between them. A metal will react with an acid producing hydrogen. This is a chemical property and this is not related to the structure itself. What is the relative molecular mass MR of sulfur dioxide? So a sulfur dioxide is SO2. Sulfur is 32 mass plus oxygen will two oxygens will also be equal to 16 times 2, which will be 32. So 64 is the correct answer. 9D. Magnetite, this is a difficult question, is an ore of iron which contains the ions Fe2 plus, Fe3 plus, and O2 minus only. What is the formula of magnetite? So Fe2 plus and oxygen, they will form the compound FeO because these two will be cancelled, and Fe3 and O will make a compound Fe2O3. This goes over there and 3 goes over there. So Fe2O3 and FeO. Both of these are present in the magnetite. So the formula will be Fe3 adding 2 and 1 over here, and this O3 plus 1, which is 4. So option D is correct. Next, concentrated aqueous sodium chloride and dilute sulfuric acid are both electrolyzed using inert electrodes. Which row identifies the product at the cathode in each electrolysis? So it should be the cation. At the cathode, we always have the cation. So no oxygen should be produced and no chlorine should be produced. So only option B is correct. Simple. Electrolytes can be broken down by electrolysis. Which rows are correct for each electrolyte? Dilute aqueous potassium chloride will have a reaction at cathode producing hydrogen. This is correct. Product at anode, yes, the anion is oxygen in this case, the OH minus, which produces oxygen. So this is also correct. Concentrated HCl. So we will have hydrogen as well as chlorine because this was concentrated, while this was dilute, which is why no chlorine. But over here we have a concentrated HCl, so chlorine will be preferred over oxygen. So option A is correct. Let's look at the other statements as well. Molten aluminum oxide, but it does not have aluminum at the anode. Aluminum is formed at the cathode. Concentrated aqueous sodium bromide. Aqueous means H plus ions are present, and whenever H plus is present, Na is never discharged. Which statement about hydrogen oxygen fuel cells is correct? Hydrogen is extracted from clean dry air. No, it is extracted from cracking hydrocarbons. The only product is carbon dioxide. No, the only product is water. The reaction is endothermic. No, no toxic gases are produced. Yes, only water is produced as a waste material. Which statement defines the activation energy for a reaction? It is a minimum energy that colliding particles must have to react. Yes, if you look at the energy profile diagram, this is the activation energy. This is the point beyond which the particles react. It is not the maximum energy, it is the minimum energy that endothermic reactions taken from the surroundings. This is not true. The equation for the complete combustion of ethane is shown. The bond energies are listed. What is the enthalpy change of the reaction when 1 mole of ethane is completely burned? So energy absorbed over here minus energy released gives us the enthalpy change. And this is given for 2 moles. So if we find the enthalpy change for this reaction and then we divide this by 2, so we will get the enthalpy change for one reaction. Oh, sorry, for 1 mole. So yeah, so 2 times we have 2 carbon hydrogen bonds, so 415 times 2 plus we have a triple bond with carbon carbon 837. Next, plus we have 5 oxygen oxygen double bonds, so 498, and all of this will be minus from this we will minus 4 times carbon oxygen 2 bonds, so 805 plus 805, or you can just write 805 multiplied by 2, and 2 OH, we have 2 OH OH, so 464 times 2. So if you put in this entire thing in the calculator, you will get the answer -2472, which is not the correct answer because you have to divide this by 2, giving you -1236, which is B. Next question, in experiment 1, small lumps of limestone are added to dilute ethanoic acid at 40 degrees. The volume of carbon dioxide is measured. The graph is shown. So experiment 1 and new experiment 2, which with new conditions. So what is the change? As you can see in the graph, the rate of reaction has decreased. Rate of reaction has lowered. So because of the gradient, the slope of experiment 1 is larger. So we will have to choose a condition. We will have to choose a condition which lowers the rate of reaction. Large lumps does lower the rate of reaction. So this is the correct answer, and the temperature is the same. The temperature should not be higher. It can be the same or below 40. So, and powder will increase the rate. So this will be incorrect. 17, in the Haber process, nitrogen and hydrogen are reacted to make ammonia. The forward reaction is exothermic. What conditions produce the maximum yield of ammonia? So we have to shift the equilibrium towards the right. So pressure. Uh, Pressure depends on the number of gas moles. The number of gas moles on the left is 4 and on the right is 2. So if we increase the pressure, the reaction will move to the side with fewer moles. So to the right, increasing ammonia. So pressure should be high, not low. And if we increase the temperature, the reaction will move backwards because the forward reaction is exothermic. If the forward reaction is exothermic and you increase the temperature, the equilibrium shifts towards left. So the temperature should be lowered, thus the answer is B. The Ostwald process is used to make nitric acid. The condition used in this process are a catalyst containing a transition element, a pressure of 10 atm, or temperature of 800. Which of these conditions are also used in the contact process? So this is used, V2O5 catalyst is used, pressure of 10 atm. This is not correct. This is not correct, because pressure uses 2 atm and temperature uses 450 to 500. So both of these are wrong. Only one is correct, option B. Okay, so this is also where you have to accumulate your theory. Hydrogen iodide is dissolved in water. So it ionizes, which row describes the final color seen when the solution is tested with damp red litmus paper and with acidified aqueous potassium magnate. So damp red litmus paper will turn red, will stay red because we have H plus ions which are present in acids, which is why acids turn the blue litmus red. So the litmus will remain red. As for the potassium magnate tests for reducing agent, or maybe we shouldn't go that way. We know potassium iodide tests for oxidizing agents. And when an oxidizing agent is present, the color changes to brown. So we have iodide present in this solution. So this will test for it, and the color should go brown because acidified aqueous potassium manganate is an oxidizing agent, and this is a reducing agent. So this tests for oxidizing agent. So the test should be positive. Which statements about aqueous ethanoic acid are correct? It can be produced by oxidizing ethanol with potassium iodide. No. Ethanol is oxidized by KMnO4. It reacts with magnesium to produce hydrogen gas. Yes. Acid plus metal produces salt plus hydrogen. Salt plus hydrogen. It has an approximate pH of value of 3. Yes, it is a weak acid, so it shouldn't have a pH of 1 or 2. It should have a pH of 3. It produces esters called methanoids. No, the ester should be ethanoid because ethanoic acid is used. So option statement 2 and 3, which means option C is correct. Next, which element forms an acidic oxide? Acidic oxides are non-metal oxides. Only non-metal present in the option is D, sulfur. Which statement describes the properties of HCl? Carbon dioxide is produced when limestone reacts with with HCl. So limestone is calcium carbonate, and we know when any carbonate reacts with dilute with any acid, carbon dioxide and water and the salt of the metal is produced. So this is correct. Hydrogen is not produced in this reaction. Methyl orange is red in acid. Red litmus stays red when dipped into HCl. Elements P and Q have the same number of electron shells, which means that they're in the same period. They're in the same period. So, and an atom of, because the number of period equals to the number of electron shells. So if they have the same number of electron shells, means they are in the same row horizontally. Which an atom of Q has more electrons in its outer shell than an atom of P. Which an outer shell electrons indicate the group number. So Q is more towards the right and P is more towards the left. Because Q has more outer shell electrons means that it has a higher group number. So P and Q are in the same group of the periodic table? No. Otherwise, they would have the same number of outer shell electrons. P and Q are in the same period of the periodic table? Yes. P has a greater tendency to form positive ions than Q. This is also correct because P is towards the metal side. So the tendency to form positive ions along the period reduces. So it should have greater tendency. So 2 and 3 are correct. The oxide of Q should be less basic, more acidic because it is towards the non-metal side. Which substance reacts with dilute sulfuric acid to form a salt that can be removed from the resulting mixture by filtration? This means that when we react, an insoluble salt is produced. So if barium chloride is to be reacted with dilute sulfuric acid, we will get barium sulfate and HCl. So barium sulfate is what? Insoluble. So option A is correct. Astatine is below iodine in group 7. Which row describes the properties of astatine? State at room temperature? No, it should be a gas. It shouldn't be a gas, it should be a solid. Iodine, beyond bromine, iodine, astatine are both solids, and it cannot displace any element above it because it has the least reactivity. As reactivity decreases down the group, so it has lower it has less reactivity. It is less reactive than chlorine, bromine, or iodine, so it cannot displace either of them. Which property of copper explains why it is classified as a transition element? Copper can be bent into different shapes. No, this is true for all metals. Copper forms Cu2 plus and Cu plus, so variable oxidation state. Variable oxidation states, which is a special property of transition elements. Electrical conductivity is true for all metals and it does not have a low density. Brass is an alloy that is formed from copper and zinc, which statements are correct. Brass, copper, and zinc all conduct electricity. Why not? They all have free electrons, mobile electrons. Brass is a compound of copper and zinc. No, it's a mixture of copper and zinc. Brass is harder than zinc. Yes, alloy. The purpose of alloys is to be harder than the original metals they are formed from. So 1 and 3 are correct. Option C. Next, the equation for the reaction of metal M with aqueous zinc sulfate is shown, which statement explains why metal M reacts with aqueous zinc sulfate. So zinc is less reactive than M. This is true, but because M is able to accept electrons from zinc ions, no, M is a metal. It won't accept electrons. It will donate electrons. Zinc is a more powerful reducing agent than M. No, it is weaker than M. Zinc is more reactive than M. Zinc is not more reactive than M, otherwise there would be no reaction with M and zinc sulfate. Zinc ions can remove electrons from M. This is true because when they displace the remove the electrons from M, in the blast furnace, the impurity silicon 4 oxide is removed by the formation of slag, which equation represents the formation of the substance which reacts with silicon oxide to form slag. So they're asking about the substance, the formation of the substance which then reacts with silicon oxide to form slag. They're not asking about the formation of slag. They're asking about the substance which reacts with silicon oxide to form slag. So the substance which reacts with silicon oxide is calcium oxide, which then reacts with silicon oxide to form calcium silicate, also known as slag. So we need to write the equation, select the equation which is forming calcium oxide. So only option C is correct, in which the thermal decomposition of calcium carbonate occurs to form calcium oxide, which is also called lime. Aluminum is extracted from bauxite by electrolysis. Aluminum ions are oxidized to form aluminum. No, aluminum ions are 3 plus and they are turned 0. So this is in fact reduction. The cathode has to be replaced regularly because it reacts with the oxygen which is formed. No, the oxygen is formed at the anode, where it reacts with the carbon. So carbon dioxide is produced at the anode, yes, because oxygen reacts with the carbon electrode to form carbon dioxide. Cleolite is added to lower the melting point of aluminum oxide. Iron rusts, but aluminum does not easily corrode. Which statement explains why aluminum does not easily corrode? It is an alloy. No, it is a metal. It is below iron in the reactivity series. It is above iron in the reactivity series. It is a transition element. This is not true. It is its surface is protected by an oxide layer. Yes, aluminum oxide forms and an impermeable layer forms above the aluminum. Which chemicals can be used as a fertilizer to provide the three elements needed for improved plant growth? NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. These are the three elements needed. So the option containing all three will be correct. So this does not contain phosphorus. This contains nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So 32B is correct. No potassium, no phosphate again, no phosphorus. Next, what is the color change when water is added to anhydrous cobalt 2 chloride? So BP is the way to remember it. Blue to pink. You will find this in the notes for use in qualitative analysis in your syllabus. How do carbon dioxide and methane cause global warming? They emit the thermal energy they are absorbed back to the earth. Correct. They first absorb the thermal energy and then emit it back on the earth's surface. They absorb the radiation directly from the sun. They increase. All others are not correct. Four statements about photosynthesis are listed. Chlorophyll is required for photosynthesis. True. The equation is shown, which is the complete opposite. This is the equation for respiration. Or even this is not correct. The entire equation is incorrect. This should be on that side as well as this. So vice versa. Photosynthesis requires energy from light. Yeah, photosynthesis the name indicates itself. Photosynthesis releases carbon dioxide. No, photosynthesis releases oxygen plus glucose, which is C6H12O6. So 1 and 3 are correct. Option A. Next question. Which molecules are structural isomers? So let's just name them. First, this will be one, two, three, four carbons in the parent chain, and the branch, if we start the numbering from the left side, we have one, two, three, four. So the branch exists at the second carbon. So 2-methyl butane. 1 and 2 cannot be isomers because there is a different functional group attached to 2. So we have learned that structural isomers are the compounds which contain the same number of atoms, which have the same molecular formula basically, whereas the molecular formula is different over here, one, two, three, four, 5 carbons, but different number of hydrogens. So it cannot be correct. Let's look at 3. The name should be 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So 3 carbon chain, and if we start the naming from here, 1, 2, 3. So 2 methyl groups on the second carbon. So 2, 2 dimethyl propane. The number of hydrogen atoms and the number of carbon atoms between 1 and 3 are both the same. They have the same functional group. So this is correct. 1 and 3. If you look at 2 and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbon atoms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbon atoms. So right away, 4 is disqualified because of one extra carbon atom. And if, yeah, so I already explained why it cannot be an isomer of this. Which statements about the reaction of ethene with steam are correct? The product has a higher molecular mass than ethane. Oh, why not? When ethene reacts with alcohol, oh sorry, with steam, this breaks and O is added on one carbon and H's are added to both carbon atoms. So the mass will be 12 plus 12 for 2 carbons, 24, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 16. So 46 for ethanol, and ethane has C2H6 formula, which will be 32, the mass. Sorry, 30. So this is greater. So this is correct. The product reacts with aqueous bromine. No, it does not have a carbon-carbon double bond, so no reaction with bromine. The number of electrons shared between carbon atoms decrease. Yes, because initially there was a double bond over here, so 4 electron pairs were being shared. But now the double bond is gone, only 2 electron pairs are being shared. So this is correct. The reaction produces an alcohol and a hydrogen. We don't have a hydrogen, we only have an alcohol. So 1 and 3 are correct, and option B. 38. Methane and chlorine react to form chloromethane, which row describes the necessary reaction condition and the type of reaction. So, nickel catalyst is used when alkenes are turned into alkanes. Hydrogenation, addition of hydrogen. UV light is used, and the type of reaction is substitution, in which a hydrogen is substituted by a chlorine, not addition, no double bond is broken. Parts of the structure of two different polymers X and Y are shown, which row about the monomers and the linkages between the monomers in polymers X and Y is correct. Okay, so if we look at the monomer, we have the carbon chain and acid group on one side and acid group on the other side. Another monomer of diamine on both sides, amine group. As for this, we have the carbon chain, the acid group on one side, and the nitrogen, the amine group on the other side. So this is something different. Here we had two different monomers, each having a different functional group. Over here we have a different monomer having two different functional groups. So the monomers are different. The linkages are same, however, because when this monomer reacted and combined with the other monomer, this is the linkage that is formed, and this is an amide linkage, which is the same over here. So option B is correct. The linkages are same, but the functional group is different. Substance Q is tested using paper chromatography. The resulting chromatogram is shown. Which statement is correct? Q is a pure substance. If it was a pure substance, why would we have two spots? The RF value of the lower spot is 0.25. We would have to calculate this. This is easier on paper. Let's just look at the other options first. Q is a mixture of at least two different substances. This is for sure true because that is why we have two spots over here. So two solvents were present, solutes. Q is a compound of two elements. If it was a compound, it wouldn't have separated like this in chromatography. So you can check this, however, by measuring this length and then dividing it by this length. If this is x, this is y, then x over y. So we have completed the paper. Thank you. Jazakallahu khairan.